There is a quiet strength in a woman who knows how to hold herself with grace, dignity, and patience. A woman who has learned that her worth is not tied to how much she chases, how much she begs, or how much she pleads for love to remain. Men, no matter how hardened, no matter how proud, feel the weight of that power when she no longer clings, when she no longer fears being alone, when she learns the beauty of detachment. It is not coldness. It is not indifference. It is the wisdom to understand that love cannot be begged for, that affection cannot be commanded, that respect cannot be demanded. It must be freely given, or it is not real at all. And men, whether they confess it or not, are drawn to that quiet certainty, because it speaks to something rare, something unshakable, something they cannot control. There is a secret rhythm in the way relationships unfold. At first, people often confuse attention with affection and persistence with passion. A woman may give all of herself, pouring her time, her care, her tenderness into a man who in his mind believes she will never leave, never turn away, never refuse him anything. That illusion of certainty breeds complacency. He assumes her heart will always be available. And yet, when that same woman withdraws, not in anger but in calm acceptance, when she carries herself with the truth that she is enough without him, when she shows him that she can thrive in her own light, suddenly, he feels a hunger he has not felt before. For it is human nature to long for what is not easily possessed, to crave what cannot be commanded. Detachment is not the absence of love. It is the presence of self-respect. It is the choice to say, I will not force you to see me. I will not kneel before you, begging for a love that should have been mine freely. It is a declaration that you are whole, even if he walks away, even if the phone does not ring, even if the arms you once knew are no longer stretched out for you. And in that moment, something profound happens. The man who thought you were his to neglect, his to delay, his to take for granted, begins to awaken. He feels the silence. He tastes the absence. He notices the shift in energy, and it unsettles him. For while neediness can be ignored, detachment cannot be denied. Men cannot resist women who detach, not because detachment is some game to be played, but because it is the truest reminder of value. It is a mirror placed before them, showing them what they stand to lose, what they have taken lightly, what they assumed would always be within reach. When a woman detaches, she stops rehearsing speeches in her mind, stops writing long messages trying to explain her worth, stops hoping he will change tomorrow if she just loves him harder today. She closes that exhausting chapter and turns inward. She builds herself. She tends to her dreams. She nurtures her peace. She becomes radiant in her independence. And that radiance cannot be overlooked. It calls him even when she does not call him. It draws him even when she does not reach for him. A man may resist words. He may resist confrontation. He may resist demands. But he cannot resist the silent power of a woman who is no longer waiting on him. That power is magnetic, because it is free of desperation. It is not about controlling him. It is not about proving something. It is about living in truth, that you will not shrink to be loved, that you will not chase to be seen, that you will not suffer to be chosen. And the man who once turned his head away will turn back, not because you begged him to, but because he realizes that what once seemed guaranteed is now uncertain, and uncertainty in matters of love is the spark that awakens desire. But let us be clear. Detachment is not manipulation. It is not a trick, not a mask, not a punishment. It is simply the refusal to abandon yourself in pursuit of someone else. It is loving with open hands, not with clenched fists. It is saying, I give you the freedom to choose, but I also give myself the freedom to walk. That balance is what stirs respect, for respect cannot grow in the soil of desperation. Respect grows when two people stand whole, choosing each other freely, not clinging out of fear. A man may not always understand why detachment unsettles him so deeply. He may not find words for why her silence, her calm, her self-possession haunt him more than her pleading ever did. But it is because men, like all people, are drawn to strength, to mystery, to the knowledge that someone will not collapse without them. That is the paradox of love. When you do not need it, you become most worthy of it. When you stop chasing, love begins to chase you. When you stop begging, affection begins to flow toward you. And when you detach, the man who once ignored you suddenly longs to be seen again. Imagine the difference between a flame that burns too close and a flame that burns steadily in its own place. The first smothers, the second inspires. Detachment is that steady flame. It does not vanish, but it does not consume the air of the other. It says, I am here, but I will not suffocate you. I will love you, but I will not lose myself. Men find this irresistible, because it allows them to step closer without fear of being trapped. And yet it also reminds them that stepping away comes with the cost of losing something rare. That balance keeps their desire alive. We live in a world where many women are taught to prove themselves in love, to show worth by sacrificing, by giving endlessly, by waiting patiently for scraps of attention. But the truth is that nothing commands respect more than a woman who does not collapse when love is withheld. A woman who smiles, who walks with her head high, who continues to live fully even when he does not call. That woman cannot be ignored. She has written her own story. She has drawn her own boundaries. And men, whether consciously or not, feel the gravity of that power. Detachment is not coldness. It is warmth directed inward. It is the embrace of one's own spirit. It is finding joy in your own company, beauty in your own reflection, peace in your own silence. And when a man sees that, when he witnesses that a woman's happiness is not chained to his approval, he cannot help but be drawn back. For he knows that kind of woman is rare. She is not easily persuaded, not easily broken, not easily swayed. She is anchored in herself, and that makes her the most magnetic of all. A man can resist many things. He can resist arguments, he can resist reason, he can resist pleading. But he cannot resist a woman who has detached. Because she is no longer trying to convince him of her worth. She has already embodied it. And once a man realizes that her world will keep turning with, or without him, that her laughter will still ring, that her steps will still move forward, he begins to wonder, does he want to be left outside of that world? Does he want to lose the light that once shone on him? That question alone stirs desire. So understand this truth: your detachment is not weakness, it is your greatest strength. It is the evidence that you know your own value, that you will not sell yourself cheaply, that you will not sit in the waiting room of someone's indecision. It is the courage to stand alone if necessary, and that courage is what makes you unforgettable. Men cannot resist women who detach, because detachment is the final proof of self-worth. It is the rarest jewel, the one not easily found, and men know, deep within, that once lost, such a woman may never return. Carry yourself with that wisdom, walk with that dignity. Let your love be generous, but let your boundaries be unshakable. And know that you do not need to chase. Because when you detach, the right man will chase you. Not because you demanded it, not because you forced it, but because he recognized the gift you are and feared the silence that came when you stopped waiting. That silence is not emptiness. It is strength. It is grace. And it is irresistible. Detachment is not coldness, it is self-respect in motion. So many times, detachment is misunderstood as indifference, as though the woman who chooses to step back has suddenly lost her heart, lost her feelings, lost her humanity. But that is not true. Detachment is not the absence of love. It is the presence of clarity. It is the quiet decision to no longer beg for scraps when you deserve the whole table. It is the realization that pleading for attention robs you of dignity, and dignity is something you must never surrender. Coldness closes the heart. But detachment opens it to new possibilities, to new ways of being, to the strength of knowing that you are not defined by how another treats you. Self-respect in motion means you are not standing still in the waiting room of someone else's indecision. You are moving forward, step by step, not with bitterness, not with malice, but with the knowledge that your worth is not determined by how tightly you can hold on. When a woman detaches, she is not saying she never loved. She is not saying she cannot feel. She is not saying she has become made of stone. What she is saying is that she values her peace more than endless chaos, her joy more than constant doubt, her future more than recycled pain. She is choosing not to abandon herself in the name of keeping someone else comfortable. Self-respect in motion looks like walking away from the phone that never rings, walking past the door that never opens, and walking into the life that is waiting for her beyond the cage of someone else's neglect. It is love redirected toward the self, and there is nothing selfish about that. Coldness is rooted in fear, in shutting down and avoiding vulnerability. Detachment is rooted in wisdom, in choosing vulnerability only with those who have proven worthy of it. It is understanding that love should never mean losing yourself. It is refusing to dim your light for someone who prefers you in the shadows. When self-respect moves through you, you no longer twist yourself into knots, just to fit into places you were never meant to belong. You no longer bend until you break, hoping someone will finally see you. You stand tall, you speak clearly, and you allow space for those who truly recognize your worth to step forward. There is a difference between shutting out the world and simply refusing to be mistreated. The first leaves you lonely, the second leaves you free. That freedom is what detachment grants. It is not the icy armor of a woman who no longer cares. It is the warm strength of a woman who has chosen to care for herself first. Self-respect in motion means you're not waiting for validation. You are not waiting for someone to tell you that you matter. You already know. You already carry it in your steps, in your smile, in your silence. That is why detachment is never coldness. It is the highest form of respect for your own soul. And it is the most powerful form of movement a woman can make. Men are drawn to the silence that follows when a woman stops chasing. There is something deeply unsettling and magnetic in the shift that occurs when a woman who once gave her all, once poured her heart into being seen, suddenly chooses silence instead. At first, he may not notice her absence, because her presence had always been constant. Her voice had always filled the space with reminders of her care. Her energy had always reached for him, whether in words, in gestures, or in countless attempts to bridge the distance between them. He thought it would always be this way. He believed her pursuit was endless. But then comes the silence, and that silence speaks louder than anything she could have said. It is not an empty silence, it is heavy with meaning. It is the silence of someone who has realized her worth, the silence of someone who has stopped performing for an audience that does not clap. It is the silence of self-respect, and men feel it in ways they cannot always explain. A woman's chasing can be ignored because it becomes familiar, expected, and therefore invisible. When she chases, he knows he does not need to lift his own hands. He does not need to pursue. He does not need to risk. Her effort becomes a cushion that keeps him comfortable, keeps him complacent, keeps him blind. But when she steps back, when her voice no longer fills his days, when her texts no longer light up his nights, when her energy no longer bends itself toward him, the world feels different to him. That silence creates a gap, and in that gap, desire awakens. It is not because silence is manipulative, but because silence is a mirror. It forces him to notice the absence of something he once took for granted. It forces him to feel what he never felt while she was chasing, that she has a life beyond him. That her attention is not a right but a privilege, that her presence is not permanent unless it is respected. Men are drawn to that silence because it carries with it a new kind of mystery. The woman who once laid her heart bare, who made it easy to know her every thought, who made herself an open book, suddenly turns the page and closes the cover. She is no longer broadcasting her emotions. She is no longer predictable in her reach. That change unsettles him because human beings crave what they cannot fully understand. When he no longer knows what she is feeling, where her mind is wandering, or whether her heart is still his, it stirs curiosity. Curiosity becomes longing, longing becomes desire. And all of this is awakened not by her chasing, but by her silence. The silence of detachment has power, because it is rooted in strength rather than bitterness. It is not the silence of punishment, where one withholds love as a weapon. It is not the silence of coldness, where one no longer feels anything at all. It is the silence of a woman who has realized she is more than enough without convincing anyone of it. It is the silence of someone who has stopped explaining, stopped justifying, stopped begging to be understood. That silence vibrates with dignity. Men sense it, and they cannot resist it, because deep down they know true dignity is rare, and rare things are always sought after. There is also the truth that silence creates space, and in that space, he is forced to face himself. As long as she is chasing, he can avoid self-reflection. He can convince himself that he is in control, that he does not need to risk vulnerability, that she will always be there no matter what he gives or fails to give. But when she grows quiet, he hears the echo of his own inaction. He begins to see himself without the buffer of her devotion. And often, that realization awakens the fear of loss, because he sees clearly that she is no longer tethered to him. The silence reminds him that she is capable of letting go, capable of moving on, capable of existing beyond his orbit. That recognition alone shifts the balance of power. Men are drawn to the silence because it challenges them. It tells them in no uncertain terms that they are not the center of her universe, that her sun does not rise and set depending on their mood, their words, or their presence. When she stops chasing, she sends a message without saying a word that her life is abundant, that her time is valuable, that her love is a gift and not a guarantee. That message is far louder than tears, arguments, or demands. It is felt more deeply than any words could convey. And men, even those who once felt distant, find themselves leaning in, compelled by the gravity of that silence. This does not mean every man will respond with maturity. Some may feel unsettled and retreat further, because the silence exposes their inability to meet her at her level. But the men who are capable of love, capable of growth, will find themselves drawn closer, seeking to reclaim the connection that once felt so certain, but now feels fragile. They will begin to chase, not because she forced them, but because her silence awakened their recognition of her value. It is the paradox of relationships. When you stop chasing, you are often chased. When you stop over-explaining, you are finally heard. There is a natural glow that comes from a woman who is not starving for attention, who is not constantly reaching outward for validation, but instead feeds her own spirit daily. That glow cannot be faked, it cannot be manufactured, it comes from the quiet rituals of self-respect, the small decisions made each day to honor her own heart, her own body, her own dreams. When she wakes up and chooses to pour kindness into herself, when she speaks words of encouragement to her own reflection, when she treats herself with the gentleness she so often gives away to others, something begins to shine from within. It is a light that no man can grant her, and no rejection can steal. That is why men find themselves captivated by such women, because they sense that her joy is not borrowed, it is owned. Directing love inward means she no longer asks someone else to be the keeper of her happiness. She learns that her peace cannot rest in another's pocket, waiting to be handed back when they decide she is worthy. She understands that if she does not nurture herself, If she does not protect her own energy, she will always be drained, always be chasing, always be hoping for crumbs. But when she fills her own cup, when she delights in her own company, when she honors her own needs, she glows differently. Her laugh carries warmth, not desperation. Her silence carries peace, not anxiety. Her presence becomes magnetic, not because she is demanding attention, but because she radiates an energy that is whole, steady, and rare. The radiance of a woman who loves herself first is what sets her apart. She does not need to grasp tightly at a man's affection, because she has already claimed affection from herself. She does not need to beg for respect, because herself, respect commands it before she speaks a word. She does not shrink in fear of rejection, because she knows rejection does not define her. That freedom allows her to move gracefully, to engage from a place of choice rather than desperation. Men are instinctively drawn to this kind of woman, because her energy challenges them, intrigues them, and inspires them. She is not asking to be chosen. She is choosing herself first, and that act makes her more captivating than anyone who waits passively to be validated. Radiance grows when love is directed inward, because it creates balance. A woman who tends to her own needs has more to give without losing herself. She can love without chains. She can offer without resentment. She can give without fear of being emptied. And when she walks into the world with that fullness, men notice. They may not have words for it, but they feel it and they cannot look away. That is the power of a woman who knows that her radiance begins with how deeply she loves herself. Respect cannot grow in the soil of desperation. When love is built on pleading, on begging, on chasing, it loses the very foundation that makes it strong. A woman who clings too tightly, who fears letting go, who twists herself in endless knots to keep someone's attention, slowly erodes the respect she longs for. It is not because she is unworthy. It is not because her love is not valuable, but because desperation changes the balance. It takes away choice, it takes away freedom, it takes away the dignity that is necessary for love to thrive. Respect requires equality. It requires two people who meet with open hands, not one grasping while the other pulls away. Desperation speaks loudly even without words. It shows up in the way someone tolerates neglect, in the way they accept half-hearted love, in the way they lower their standards just to avoid being left alone. It is a hunger that cannot be hidden, and while a man may accept the comfort it provides, he cannot truly respect it. For respect is born when boundaries are clear, when standards are firm, when love is offered freely, but never at the cost of self-worth. A woman who carries herself with quiet assurance, who knows she will be fine with, or without his approval, cultivates respect because she is rooted in strength rather than fear. Desperation chases validation, but respect is drawn to confidence. A man cannot respect what clings without choice, but he cannot ignore what stands tall in its own right. When a woman chooses herself even in the face of rejection, when she steps back instead of collapsing, when she refuses to beg for the bare minimum, she plants the seeds of respect. That respect may come immediately or only later when he realizes what he lost. But it will grow because it was nurtured by her dignity. Respect cannot exist where one is always giving and the other is always taking. It cannot grow when love feels like an obligation, when one partner feels trapped rather than free. It thrives only when there is balance, when both people recognize the value of the other, when both know the relationship is a choice and not a cage. Desperation is the enemy of that balance. It suffocates love by removing the air of freedom. And so the woman who refuses to beg, who loves without losing herself, who walks away when she is not honored, creates the only soil in which respect can truly grow. That is why she becomes unforgettable, because respect and desire are always strongest when rooted in dignity rather than desperation. Detachment transforms absence into presence and weakness into strength. When a woman who has been constantly available chooses to step back, her absence is not empty. It becomes louder than her presence ever was. He begins to feel the weight of her silence, the depth of the space she once filled with her attention, her kindness, her warmth. That absence does not signal loss, it signals transformation. She is no longer weakly tied to his approval. She is no longer bending under the weight of hoping to be chosen. Instead, she becomes present in a different way, present within herself, present in her own growth, present in the life she builds without waiting for him. What once seemed like weakness, the fear of letting go, the fear of walking away, becomes the very strength that reshapes her identity. Detachment allows her to take back power, to see clearly, to move without the chains of need. It is the moment when her energy shifts from chasing love to becoming love. That transformation makes her magnetic, because absence seasoned with self-respect is more striking than constant presence, filled with desperation. What he once overlooked suddenly becomes all he can notice, because her detachment has turned the silence into undeniable power. The rarest beauty is a woman who can thrive without needing to be chosen. In a world that teaches women to wait for validation, to measure themselves by whether someone else claims them, it is extraordinary to witness a woman who blossoms on her own. She does not wait for love to give her permission to shine. She does not wait for approval to make her feel alive. She does not wait for anyone's hand to guide her steps. She builds her life with or without an audience. She cultivates joy in her own company, invests in her own dreams, and surrounds herself with peace that cannot be stolen. That kind of independence is rare, and because it is rare, it is radiant. Men are drawn to this kind of woman not because she plays a game, but because she is whole in herself. There is no desperation in her eyes, no pleading in her heart, no fear of standing alone. Her strength is gentle but firm, her confidence quiet but undeniable. She can love fully, but she does not collapse if love is absent. That balance makes her irresistible, because her beauty is not built on need. It is built on freedom. The freedom to walk away, the freedom to stay true to herself, the freedom to thrive no matter who stands beside her. The rarest beauty does not come from perfection. It comes from resilience. It is the light of a woman who has learned that being chosen does not make her valuable. It only adds to what was already there. And when a man encounters such a woman, he cannot forget her, because she embodies the truth that real beauty comes from thriving on your own and offering love without ever needing it to define you.